"Sir, step back. This area is restricted." The old man didn't flinch. His back was straight, his eyes clear. In one hand he held a black binder, in the other the edges of a worn veteran's cap fluttered in the wind. He didn't look confused. He looked like someone who had every right to be there. But the young officer standing in front of him didn't see that. He just saw an old man in overalls and a cap. "This is an active flight line," the officer snapped, eyes narrowed. "You can't just walk in here like you own the place." The veteran's voice was calm. "I helped build that hangar 42 years ago. We used steel from the old plant off Highway 9. I've got a clearance letter in this binder." "I don't care if you built the whole base," the officer cut in. "Nobody walks past this line without active clearance." The man didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, turned, and began the long walk back toward the gate. His shoulders still proud, but heavy now with something no uniform could measure. Across the tarmac, Colonel Mason was walking out of the command center when he spotted the commotion. His eyes narrowed as he watched the exchange from afar, the officer's pointed finger, the veteran's retreat. He called over a nearby tech sergeant. "Who was that man just now?" "Not sure, sir," the sergeant said. "Looked like an old civilian. Tried to walk onto the line. Lieutenant Harrow turned him away." "Did he have a badge?" "Said he had a letter. Wasn't verified." The colonel didn't wait for the rest. He turned and strode back into the building, his boots hammering the pavement. Within minutes, he was scrolling through an email chain marked "Legacy Visit Clearance." Retired Engineer M.L. Hanley. Attached was a scanned copy of a letter from the Department of Defense authorizing a base walkthrough for a retired contractor as part of the new Veterans History Archive. Colonel Mason's eyes widened. M.L. Hanley. That name wasn't just familiar, it was legendary. He had been the lead structural engineer on multiple hangars, including the very one Mason now commanded. Mason had studied his designs at the academy, and that officer had just turned him away like a trespasser. He grabbed the radio. "Security, this is Colonel Mason. I need eyes on a civilian male, mid-70s, navy blue jumpsuit, carrying a black folder. He was just turned away from Checkpoint 6. I want him brought back immediately, with respect." The air buzzed with silence. Then, "Roger that, sir." Minutes later, the veteran was escorted back, not by force, but by honor. A different young airman walked beside him this time, shoulders squared and posture straight. When they reached the hangar entrance, Colonel Mason was already waiting. "Mr. Hanley?" the colonel asked, extending his hand. The old man looked up. "Yes?" "My name is Colonel Mason. I'd like to personally apologize for what just happened. You should have never been turned away." Hanley shook his hand firmly. "It's all right. I've been told to leave better places than this." He smiled faintly. Mason smiled back. "Not today, sir." They walked side by side down the flight line. The colonel asked questions not out of protocol but out of reverence. Hanley remembered the exact crane used to place the hangar beams. He pointed out the roof expansion joint he redesigned after a sandstorm warped the original. He remembered names, lost ones, etched in concrete no one looked at anymore. The young airman trailing behind them wasn't just listening, he was learning. For the first time he saw the base as more than steel and schedule. He saw the souls who built it. Halfway through the walk, Mason stopped. "I read your notes at the academy," he said. "Your case study on stress loading the upper bays changed how I thought about structure and endurance. I never thought I'd meet the man behind the pages." Hanley chuckled. "Funny, I used to say the same thing about pilots." They both laughed. But then the colonel did something else, something no one expected. He turned to the young airmen nearby who had gathered quietly, watching. "This man," he said, "is part of the reason you have a roof over your head, the floor beneath your boots, the hangars that protect your birds. He's not a civilian guest. He's part of this base's foundation." Silence. Then slowly, one by one, the airmen straightened their posture. A few even saluted. Hanley didn't say much after that, but when he looked out at the hangar, tears welled up in the corners of his eyes. Not because of nostalgia, but because after all these years, someone had remembered. He stayed for an hour longer, took photos, touched the walls, even ran his hand across the beam he'd once helped weld. When he finally turned to leave, Colonel Mason walked with him all the way to the gate. Just before he stepped out, Hanley turned back. "Thank you for bringing me back." Mason nodded. "No, sir. Thank you for building what brought us here." Sometimes the most powerful stories don't happen in battle. They happen in silence, in the spaces veterans return to after decades, still loyal to what they once built.